In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one Lord, amen. Okay, so we're starting a series today. I don't know if you guys got the email or checked the email, but we're starting the series, and the series is going to be called The Way of the Heart. And the series is going to be comprised of 3 different topics. So the first one today is solitude, and after that we're going to be talking about silence, and the third one is prayer. We're going to just jump right in, and I'll lead you guys kind of through what we're going to be doing today and what to expect for the next 2 coming up in the series. This series is based on this book. It's called The Way of the Heart. And so a lot of what I'm going to be discussing comes out of the first, it's split up into those 3 sections. And so it's from that first section of the book. So if you want to refer back to this book, I think this book is excellent. So please, if you're interested, you want to hear more, learn more about this topic, or like in the series, then please refer back to this book. Just so you guys know, disclaimer as well, I listened to a sermon series that was about this book as well. So read the book and heard the series, so a lot of what I'm going to be saying is coming out of the book and out of that series, so nothing is originally mine, just so you know. Okay, so let's just jump right in. All right. So, some of these people might look familiar. Some of them you may know by name. Some of them you may not know by name. So these are Olympians, right? And I tried to get, ones with golds. And so, most of them here these are all gold medalists, okay, in their respective sports. So, why am I talking about Olympic athletes? So, these people train for years and years and years. For some of them, it's crazy. Like the 100-meter sprint, like how long does that take them? Like 10 seconds? 11 seconds? Like they will train years and years and years and years for 10 seconds in the spotlight. And it's like 10 seconds make it or break it. If it's 11 seconds, you're like in last place. If you're 10 seconds, you can win gold. Like it's a fraction of a second. So they train years and years and years to get to where they are, to just make it on, like, first of all, like the Olympic stage, and then obviously to even medal or to win gold medals. So then I was thinking, okay, great. So Olympics, okay, Olympians, like, would anybody here, has anyone ever considered, like, you guys big fans of the Olympics? Do you guys watch, care at all? Anything that has to do with sports? Cool? Yeah, okay. All staring at me as if you don't know what I'm talking about. Have you guys ever thought what it would be like to be an Olympian? Or to be like, no one ever thought of being an Olympian? Would anyone ever thought like of being like winning gold or medaling or like that ceremony, like the medaling ceremony, like nobody? Wow. It's impressive. It's great. It's great ambitions. Okay. So, I've thought about it for sure. I just think it would be great to medal. I just like winning stuff. But I think the discipline that goes into this is blows my mind. Have you guys ever watched in the Olympics when they tell the stories of the Olympians? Like, ever watched oh, this person's doing that or that, and they tell you little snippets of the medalists? Do you guys not watch the Olympics? No? Oh, do you know what the Olympics are? Do you know who these people are? Some of them?
Tessa and Scott.
Huh?
I see Michael Phelps.
I think we should name each one.
Michael Phelps?
These kids.
For the sake of these Olympians!
Who's the guy at the top?
They're only there for 10 seconds.
I don't know.
Yes.
Yes. My whole point is some of them we know and some of them we don't know.
Yes, you've seen both. These are the American gymnasts.
Exactly.
Both.
There's Phelps. These are the Canadian figure skaters that won. Yes. So my point is these people train for many, many years to just be on the spotlight for a very short time. Okay? But they train a lot, and their whole life depends on this, okay? Everything that they do in their life is focused on them being Olympians, okay? Their whole life is about it. I think it's different than, professional athletes, other professional athletes like NBA, NFL, what do you guys watch? NHL, hockey, soccer, basketball, whatever you guys are into. It's their career, like it's what they do during the day. Like a lot of these other professional athletes that we know, like in like these American leagues, this is their profession. So this is what they do during the day. It's not like, oh, this person is an engineer and also plays for the NBA, right? A lot of these are like their jobs, their full-time jobs is to play the sport. It's actually not the case for Olympians. Most of these Olympians that play these sports, this is not their job. This is not their career, okay? They have normal lives. They are students. They are people who have careers. They have professional lives. They have families. They could be married. They could be like in relationships. They're people who live normal lives, just happen to be Olympians on the side, okay? And so I think we can learn a lot from these Olympians, whether some of you guys know them or not. So then I think, what really separates me from an Olympian? I mean, a few things. Okay. But here are the two main things, I think. I think a lot of us want to achieve things in life. Okay? So in the case of the Olympics, yes, there's definitely talent that they have that I don't have. Okay? But in the context of what we're discussing today, that's not going to be a factor. So it's really point number one here on the screen, which is focus, that I really want to discuss. This whole idea with Olympians versus us, for example, okay, is that they're focused. You and I are busy, correct? I mean, if I talk to any of you and I say, hey, how's your week going? It's busy, okay? I'm already behind. I'm busy. There's this going on. There's that going on. I already have things to do. There's so many things going on in our lives. And for a lot of us, it determines what else we do. So it's like, I'm busy with school, and I have like my social circle, and I'm just trying to get by, okay? So whenever we talk about like being disciplined in our spiritual lives, a lot of it's like, I just don't have time. I am busy, okay? Which is fair, okay? Just like these Olympians, they are busy people. They have lives, okay? So the sport that they're in is not their professional career. So what makes them disciplined and me not? Okay? It's focus. These people have a goal, okay? They want to be an Olympian in like this gymnast, okay? Wants to be in the Olympics. So she will wake up and train at 4 a.m, okay? Like the gymnasts that I showed were young. Like these girls are in high school, okay? And they're in high school and they're going to have careers and all that sort of stuff, okay? So, but she's okay to wake up at 4 a.m. and go to training for 3 or 4 hours before she goes to school. And then she goes to school, and then she comes home, and she has to go for training for another couple of hours, okay? Or people who are working or in their professional lives. They go before and after. Everything that they do is focused on this goal that they want to win gold. Gold is always before their eyes, okay? As an Olympian, your whole purpose is I want to win gold, okay? So everything that they do, in terms of their schedule, in terms of their training, in terms of what they eat, their whole eating schedule is based on the fact that they are trying to win gold. So they make decisions on what I eat and don't eat, what I choose to put in my body and not, based on my goal, okay? Their social life is affected, because you can imagine if you're going to be up at 4 a.m, you're not going to be up past 9 p.m., okay? So their social lives are affected. Why? Because they have this goal in their mind that they want to win gold. So I think we can really learn a lot from these Olympians. They are focused on a goal. My problem is I'm not focused. So I do things as I please, okay? So it's like, I'm feeling like, let's say this whole idea of like these Olympians who can work out for 4 hours in the morning and 4 hours in the evening, and I can't make it to like 30 minutes to the gym a day. Why? I have no focus. So it's like, I'd like to make it to the gym. That would be great. That's ideal. Okay, today I'm tired. Tomorrow I'll go to the gym. Okay? Today I have something to do. A friend's thing came up. Okay, I'll go to the gym. or I won't go to the gym. I'll go out with my friends. Like, I'm not focused. There's no goal. There's no target. It's just like when I feel like it. These Olympians, that's not their life. There's no when I feel like it. You feel like it or you don't, you're going to train for 3 hours in the morning, you're going to train for 3 hours at night. And your food and your social life and everything is going to be focused on that because it's important and you want to win gold. Okay. We have Olympians of our own. Okay? Some of you guys might recognize. So the top row are Olympians who have already won gold. Okay? Your bottom row are Olympians who are still competing. And the rest of the Olympians, which is going to be my invitation for all of us, are in this room. Okay? But we have Coptic Olympians of our own. These people actually, these nuns and monks actually are also Olympians. They're pretty much the exact same. Their day is disciplined. Okay? They have training, and we'll talk about what that means and what that looks like for them. But they have training, and it's for specific hours or a specific day, okay? Their food and their diet is also affected. They don't just eat whatever they want, whenever they want. There's periods of fasting, there's periods of abstaining, and there's periods where we don't eat this or we don't do that, okay? So they're that. Their social life is definitely affected, okay? Because these Olympians also want to win gold, okay? They are focused. So let's shift our focus to these guys. That's my invitation for us. These guys are focused. You and I, God only knows what we are, okay? Not focused, okay? That's why everything else distracts us, okay? These guys don't. When it's fasting, it's fasting. It's prayer, it's prayer. There is no like, I only pray when I feel like it. I only go to liturgy when I'm not tired. Oh my gosh, I like work all day and I do this all day and my week is exhausting. I can't make it to liturgy early because that's just, I'm tired. Okay, it's just because we're not focused. Okay? Nothing's wrong with that. We just need to admit that. Okay? These people are going for gold. And my invitation for you and me is that we also go for gold. In 1 Corinthians, St. Paul says, "Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown." Okay, so St. Paul is inviting us all saying, hey, there's all these people that are athletes that run, and they run for a perishable crown. They run for a gold medal, which is fantastic. I think the idea of winning a gold medal is pretty sweet. Like for your country, to represent your country in your sport and to win a medal, I think is huge. Okay? But what we're going for is way, way, way bigger than that. We're talking about eternal life. We're talking about union with God, the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings. Like, we're not talking about some perishable gold medal. Okay? So whatever it is that is in your mind, maybe you don't care about the Olympics. Okay? But take a second to think of, like, what is important to you? What is something that you are striving for in your life? Whatever it may be. Whether it's career-related, relationship-related, sport-related, whatever it is related. What in your life is something important to you that you're like, oh, I want to get there. I want to achieve this. If it's not union with God, then it's a perishable crown. Okay? Not saying we shouldn't go for these things, but we just have to understand that we run so much. We run so fast. We're exerting so much effort into these perishable crowns, whatever they may be, and we are not focused on the imperishable crown that we are supposed to be running towards. Okay. So, we're just going to see where this kind of all started, and you guys have heard this before, because I've heard it spoken about here before. Where did it all begin? These are martyrs, okay? So, we've heard this. I know Father Anthony has spoken about this when we did the whole series on martyria, okay? So this whole idea is, where it all started, this whole idea of monasticism, is that there was people who were martyred, okay? So people who started, like when Christianity first started, people were being persecuted for their faith, okay? And their faith cost them something, okay? People were getting martyred, and that's what made their faith like valuable, is that it cost them. It was worthy of their bloodshed. And then then it made it like so much more that people wanted to be martyrs. You guys know, like people would hear like somebody's getting martyred, and it would like inflame a desire in their heart to also go get martyred. And then when King Constantine came, he said, okay, well now we're not going to persecute Christians. Not only are we not going to persecute Christians, but we're going to integrate them to society because they were outcasts. Okay, like not only were they like martyred, but it was like you didn't want to be associated with a Christian. Like they were outcasts. Like they weren't integrated into society. They would like do things on their own because nobody wanted to deal with them because they're people who were like outcast and martyred. So then when King Constantine came into power, he said not only is now Christianity not being persecuted, it's going to actually be like the religion of the nation. And so it's going to be like embraced. Interesting enough, a lot of Christians were like, this is not good. Okay? Interesting enough, integrating into society, conforming to societal norms of what was happening around them, a lot of Christians actually shied away from that. So they started to think, well, now what? Now our Christianity is not costing us anymore. Okay, it's not worth anything anymore. Okay? It's just like, when you guys will hear like, like especially Americans, but on our end as well as Canadians, like really big on like our freedom and we're Canadians and it like, or we're Americans and or whatever it is, and like Independence Day and things like that are like a big deal. Remembrance Day is a big deal. Why? Because people fought for this nation, for its freedom, for its independence. It didn't just come. Okay? Same thing. People fought and were martyred and shed their blood for this faith. So people were offering themselves to God through martyrdom. And when that no longer was a thing, people thought, well, how else are we going to offer ourselves? And that's where St. Anthony was a big player in this, but he actually wasn't the first one. We call him the father of monasticism, but he wasn't the only one. There was lots of people who started fleeing, okay? Men and women were fleeing, okay, to go into the deserts to offer themselves to God, okay? And it wasn't just an offering, but it was also this whole idea of like, I don't want to conform to society. This whole idea of like, society, they weren't being attacked anymore physically, like in their bodies, but their minds were being attacked, their souls were being attacked, their hearts were being attacked, and they're like, so our way of like martyrdom in that sense was to flee to the desert, okay? That was their safe haven, okay, to flee from the attacks of the world on them. One of these saints, okay, St. Arsenius prayed. And you guys don't know a little bit about St. Arsenius. He was the tutor he lived in the palace, and he tutored the sons of the king. Okay? But he was Christian, and so he was like really like philosophy and rhetoric, and he was, well learned. And he prayed and he said, Lord, lead me in the way of salvation. And he heard a voice saying, Arsenius, flee, be silent, pray always, for these are the sources of sinlessness. This is the source of your salvation, okay? It was flee, be silent, and pray always. And it's these three things, fleeing, being silent, and praying, that are going to be our training tools. This whole idea we're talking about, like these Olympians who train, okay? Whether, for the Olympics that we know, or whether it's the Coptic Olympians that I was mentioning, they are training, and they train with these tools. So we are going to be, in this series, learning about these tools and how we can implement them in our daily lives. This series is not about, okay, everybody, off to the desert we go, we're all going to be monks and nuns. That's not the idea. The idea is, how can we bring the spirituality of the desert? How can we bring the heart of the desert and the desert fathers and mothers? What were they thinking that we can implement in our lives today so that we could have that union with God and union with Christ just like they did? And that's where we're going to be starting off. That was my long intro. Don't worry, the talk will be shorter. Don't worry. So that's the intro into Solitude. I just want to give us a little bit of background as to where this is all coming from. Okay? We're all on this journey, and we're going to be taking the first step today. Some of you guys might be thinking, solitude. This whole idea of like they were fleeing from the world. So you might be thinking, why do I have to flee? Okay? Okay, we flee from sin. We all get that. We're all on the same page. But like this whole idea of like fleeing from the world, what's up with that? So there's this Orthodox priest, no longer living, but his name is Thomas Hopko. And he has this imagery, which is brilliant, really. He talks about the prodigal son story, and he says that our world that we live in today is like the pig pen. So he says, imagine this with me, that the prodigal son goes to the pig pen, leaves the father's house, leaves the palace, and goes into the pig pen, okay? And he lives in the pig pen, and let's just say he doesn't come to himself. He just thinks, he gets comfortable in the pig pen. And then somebody else is in the pig pen, and he makes friendships in the pig pen, okay? And then he ends up getting married in the pig pen, and having kids in the pig pen, okay? And having his life, and then generation after generation, they just live in the pig pen, okay? And that's all they know. Generations down the road, all they know is this life in the pig pen. They are actually unaware that there's any life outside of the pig pen. So all they're used to is muddy friendships, muddy relationships, muddy careers, muddy food, muddy everything. Everything's just muddy. But that's all they know. They think that's all that exists, is life in this mud. Okay? They don't realize that there's life outside of here, that there's a palace where they actually belong. They're actually from the palace. The people here are the sons and daughters and the grandchildren and whatever of the king. They don't realize that. All they know is muddy world. A muddy world that has envy, that has judgment, that has gossip, that has pain, that has hurt, that has greed. That's all they know, is their muddy world. But they're comfortable. This is all they know. And it's not like it's all bad. I mean, there's like muddy movie theaters, okay? And there's things to do there that they're just used to and they're comfortable, and that's okay. So he's saying that our world is like this pig pen. And the only way for us to acknowledge that we are living in the pig pen is to step away. If all I know is the pig pen, and nobody ever tells me that there's life outside of this pig pen, then that's all I do. That's all I know. And I will get my identity from the pig pen. I will never know that there's a palace where a king lives, where I'm part of his family, where there's clean food, where there's purity, where there's holiness, where there's love, where there's peace, where there's joy. True. These things that are true. There's a lot of these things that are muddy, okay? There's like love that's like muddied. It's not real. It's not unconditional. But that's all they know. So they think this is what love looks like. They have joy, but it's all muddy. So they think this is joy. They don't understand what true joy is. The fullness of joy is that it's not muddied, because all they know is their muddy world. So the whole idea with solitude is we are being invited to step out. And the church fathers and the church mothers knew this. They knew. They realized that we're living in a pig pen and we need to step away to realize our true identity, and that the pig pen is not actually where we belong. So following in their footsteps, what we want to learn from them is this whole idea of, okay, I must step away from the pig pen so that I could realize who I am, who God is, what am I doing? So that things become a little bit more clear for me. Some myths. We think solitude is time for me to relax, time for me to go for a walk, time for me to just turn my brain off, clear my mind. That's what we think sometimes solitude is. Solitude is not that. It's actually the exact opposite of that. Solitude is a time for me to be alert, a time for me to wake up and acknowledge my situation. It's a reality check. Okay? It is not time for me to meditate and do yoga and zen and whatever you guys think solitude is. It's not solitude. Okay? Solitude is being in the presence of God, and it's my time to actually be alert. It's actually time to turn on my brain because it's actually been numbed in my muddy world. My eyes have been muddied. I can't see clearly. So when I go into solitude is when I can start cleaning off a lot of that mud, which actually is going to take work and effort. It's not time to just relax and chill out. We think I'm going to go for a walk and relax. It's not solitude. Walking could be a way of doing solitude. But as we'll see, it has to be intentional. It's not just clear my mind and everything will be okay. Okay. Let's just jump into what is solitude? Okay? These are quotes that come right out of the book, actually. Okay? I don't know if you can see them or read them. But solitude is being alone with God in your heart. It's a place in your heart. It's not a place physically. Okay? So you could do solitude when there's people around. I don't need to be in my room alone. Okay? Yes, I could be in my room alone, but I do not have to be. I could be in solitude right now. Okay? Not me, I'm speaking. I really have to focus as to what I'm saying. But you could be in solitude, okay? So solitude is this idea of I bring my mind into my heart, okay? And there I meet Christ. I'm in his presence, okay? And I can do that anywhere. And this will seem a little bit theoretical. We'll talk at the end of the talk. We'll bring it together with practically how do we practice solitude. But it's this whole idea is I don't have to flee literally. The monks and the nuns and the saints that we know that did that, yes, they fled literally. They went to the monasteries. They went to the caves, okay? But we're not expected to do that. The idea is I need to just have solitude, a place where I can just bring myself into the presence of God. But it needs to be intentional. It is not something that is just going to haphazardly happen, okay? Solitude is a place where I go to separate myself from the mud. It's a place where I just say, okay, I step out of the muddied world, okay? And I spend time in Christ to realign myself in truth. It's a time where I'm going to immerse myself in truth. Truth of what? 3 things, which we'll talk about in a second. Truth of who God is, because in my muddy world, that's been muddied up. So we have an idea, a faint idea of who that is, but in the muddy world, people have their own opinions. There's a whole idea of relative truth. Your truth is okay, my truth is okay, everyone's truth is okay. You know, we're all right, we all love each other, right? Yeah, that's muddied up truth, okay? But there's absolute truth, okay, of who God is. So when I step away from the mud and clear off my eyes, then I can actually see clearly as to who God is. So I found out truth about him, I found out truth about myself, who I am. Then I realized, hey, I'm not supposed to be living in a pig pen. What's going on here? I'm actually a daughter of the king. That king in the palace over there that looks nice. Why am I here with the pigs and it smells and everything's muddy? Okay? So I find out truth. I realign, every time I step away into solitude, I realign myself in truth. And I immerse myself into that truth. I think that Henry Nouwen says, he says, solitude is the furnace of transformation. Okay? Without solitude, we remain victims of our society and continue to be entangled in the illusions of the false self. So because everything's muddied, I not only have a false illusion of who God is, but I don't know who myself is. Then my identity becomes what everybody else tells me that I am. What everyone tells that I'm worth, or my value, or social media tells me what I'm worth, all of that sort of stuff. We believe illusions of our false self because that's all we know. The whole idea of solitude is to pull away from that. Spend time with God so He can tell you, as your creator, who you actually are. He says also, solitude is the place of purification and transformation, the place of the great struggle and the great encounter. I love that, the great struggle and the great encounter. Because it's a struggle. Because a lot of us are comfortable in our muddy world. Even if we know, we've all been raised in church, we're aware a little bit that there is a palace and there is a king, and that we might be in this muddy world. But we're comfortable. We're comfortable in our muddy world. We're comfortable in our routine. We're comfortable in what we're doing. We're comfortable in how people see us. We're just comfortable. So in solitude, I see a reality. I see who I really am, which could be a struggle. I become more vulnerable, okay? But what's beautiful with this great struggle, it's also this great encounter where I meet Christ. I truly can see Him for who He is without all this muddiness, without these like distorted ideas of who God is. So what are the fruits of solitude? Okay, and I kind of touched on this, but we're just going to go into it a little bit more detail. So the first fruit, as I said, is God reveals Himself. Okay, He reveals who He is. Now that might be different times. So you go into solitude and He reveals to you that He is your Father. Okay? And so, great, we know that. It's not news. I didn't tell you anything new. You already knew He was your Father. But do you really know that He is your Father? Do you know what that means for God to be your Father? Does that mean, do you know what that means for Him to, have, in His providence, take care of everything for you? Like a little child who's a toddler who doesn't have to think about tomorrow? We are the most worried generation. We're stressed, we're worried, we're anxious about tomorrow, about our futures. We are just, what? It's as if we don't have a Father. Even though we know it. Okay? In solitude is where I realign myself in that truth. I spend time in His presence and He tells me, I am your Father. I care for you. I love you. In solitude, He tells me that He is my Savior. So that when I'm in the dumps and I'm going through stuff and I'm in my sinfulness and I'm struggling, He says, that's okay. I'm here to save you. That's why I came. Okay? When I'm hurting and I'm wounded, He says, I am your healer. When I'm lost, He says, I am your good shepherd. Things that aren't news to any of us. But we need to realign ourselves in that truth on a very regular basis. Because we are just so used to running in our world. Okay? You know that hamster that's running on that wheel? Okay? That's what we are in our lives. We're just that hamster running on the wheel. And we think that's life. I'm just going to keep running, and I'm tired, and I'm stressed, and I just keep running. Towards what? That hamster isn't going anywhere. We're just running, and we think we're doing something. We're just running, exerting energy into what? Are we focused? Do we have a goal? Are you going anywhere? Are you just running? Okay? When I spend time with God in solitude, He tells me who He is. And it's personal. So I can sit here all day and tell you, well, He's Father and He's Savior and He's beloved and He's all this great stuff. But in different times of your life and in my life, He's going to come through as something more than the other. Okay? And then when I go through a different part of my life, then He reveals Himself as something else. And it becomes personal. Okay? The great encounter with the God who is. Okay? So the first fruit of solitude is He reveals who He is. Not only that, it's a time for me to reflect on, do I live my life according to who I know my God is? Okay, so this whole idea of if I know He is Father, then do I live my life carefree and trusting? Or do I need to realign myself as to that truth of who God is? The second fruit of solitude, as I mentioned, is I get to find out who I am, my identity. It's when He can truly tell me, you are beloved, you are forgiven, You are my child. You are a member of my body. You are mine. Okay? Forget what the world says. Forget this muddied up identity that you thought of yourself. Okay? You are worthy. You are valuable. You are loved. Things that, forgive me, you and me beg for in the world. We are begging for someone to tell us that we're loved. Begging for someone to acknowledge our existence. That's why we post all of these things that we post. Social media. What is social media? A cry for attention. It's just this whole idea of like, someone like me, literally, like my page. Someone do this, someone that. Someone give me attention. Why? It's because we're living in a muddied up world, and I'm looking for you or you to determine who I am. I'm looking for you to determine my value, where you don't actually get to determine my value. Okay? When I step aside into solitude, God tells me who I am. Tells me that I am his child. Tells me that I'm his daughter or that I'm his son and how cared for I am. And then again, it's this whole idea of I get to meet my true self in solitude, away from the mud, away from the people, okay, away from the expectations that the world has set on us, our families have set on us, our culture has set on us, and we have set on ourselves. Expectations. Away from all of that, I just come into solitude and I find out who truly I am. Because I sit with the Creator, the one who made me. It only makes sense that I'm going to find out who I am if I spend time with the one who put me together, who created me. And then, again, it's the idea of I reflect, now that I know who I am, do I live my life according to that? Do I live my life like I am a daughter or a son of the King? Or do I step into solitude, I see a glimpse of that, and then I run back into my muddied up world, and I live my life as if I'm not the daughter or the son of the King? And that's how we're going to talk about, we need to do solitude regularly, because I need to immerse myself in that truth on a regular basis. Because unfortunately, the world is very good about distracting us. The world is very good at having us run on that hamster wheel. So I need to pull out regularly to re-immerse myself into that truth. The third fruit of solitude is I get to find out who my neighbor is, and I get to get the strength to deal with my neighbor. Okay? This is a story of feeding the 5,000. Okay? We're not going to read the whole story. We're just going to read the top of it and the ending of it. It says, when Jesus heard it, he departed from there by boat to a deserted place by himself. But when the multitudes heard it, they followed him on foot from the cities. And when Jesus went out, he saw a great multitude, and he was moved with compassion for them. Okay? Stop there. And then it's going to go into the story. He feeds the 5,000. He heals their sick. Okay? And then it says, after that, and he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. The point of this is, in solitude is when I gain the strength, okay, from God to be able to deal with my neighbor. This whole idea is, he goes and sits, or he departs from the boat and he goes to a deserted place and he's by himself. He does his solitude. And then, it says he went out and he saw a great multitude and he was moved with them for compassion. Now it's funny, like great multitude, and we find out later it's 5,000 men. Great multitude, 15,000 people. Can you imagine 15,000 people coming at you? Okay? What is our first thought? Like I'm tired. Ain't nobody got time for you. You know what my week has been. Okay? Forget 15,000 people. Let's talk about 20 people in one room. Okay? We come into settings and it's like, I'm tired. I don't want to deal with anybody. I don't want to be kind. Oh, there's somebody over there? Just like it takes a lot of effort for me to go say hello and care for somebody who is sitting by themselves. Okay? It's, my friend comes to me and they just want to unload and girl, I got my own stuff to unload. Ain't nobody got time for you. Why are we like that? Because we don't spend enough time in solitude. So we don't actually get to find out who my neighbor is and how I should deal with them. And gain the strength in solitude to deal with them in compassion. So he says or with compassion. He says he saw a great multitude and he was moved with compassion. Only in solitude will God transform our hearts. We're talking about how solitude is a place of transformation. He transforms our hearts so that we are able to be compassionate. It's okay if you're not. I'm not either, okay? I'm not compassionate, but it's okay. But that's why I know I need to go into solitude so that he could do something to this heart so that I could be compassionate, so that I could be kind, so I could be loving, right? And then, a lot of times, even when we are, really okay, I'm going to be kind, I'm going to go ask about people, I'm going to do this, okay? After we're done, we're what? Drained. Oh, that was exhausting. Right? So what does he do? After the miracle, he goes back into solitude. So it says, when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Again. Okay? So solitude before, solitude after. He gains his strength from that union with the Father. And the same thing. We will gain our strength from that time in solitude, in union with God. Okay. So to wrap up, talked about solitude, about what it is, about myths about solitude, okay, and fruits of solitude. Now, practically speaking, what does this look like for us who would like to be Coptic Olympians, but you and I aren't going to the desert anytime soon? Okay? Maybe some of you are. God only knows. Daily. We need to look for opportunities. So this look for opportunities, if you're thinking, oh, what does she mean by that? I mean, for every random minute or two where you're pull up my phone. Do you know those times? I've done it 10 times today. And I already knew I was speaking about this. And I was like, oh, I just have to sit here. Okay? And then I was like, okay, I'll just pull it out. Okay? I'm just so used to, if we get any downtime in between classes, so you switch class, what do you guys have, 10 minutes? Or how long are in between your classes? 10 minutes, right? So you get to your class, you sit down, you've got a minute to spare. What are you doing? You're on your phone. I know you are. Okay? Okay, you're on your phone. Okay? So that minute, just center yourself. We said solitude does not mean you have to be alone in a room. Solitude is just this idea of bringing my mind into my heart and acknowledging that I am in his presence, okay? And just realigning myself in that truth. Who God is, who I am, what is my purpose, okay? So that's my first thing is every time your go-to is to pull out your phone, just put it back down, resist the urge, spend a minute or two. This is just downtime throughout the day. And you will be surprised how much of this time we don't even think about it, we pull out our phone. Okay? I see patients for a living, and I have maybe 2 seconds or 2 minutes, I'll document and I'm ready for my next one. I automatically pull out my phone while I'm waiting for the next, it's 30 seconds. It's refresh, oh, nothing's going on. As per usual, okay? Okay? But every time you think of refreshing your feed, spend that time to just put yourself in the presence of God. Another thing that we could do daily is every morning. Okay, it is so important before we go into our mud world. Okay, before we walk into the pig pen, okay, to spend a minute or two to realign ourselves in truth. Because we know now that the pig pen, okay, is deceiving. The pig pen, I'm not alert and I can't see well and everything is muddied. Okay, so what I need to do is spend 1 or 2 minutes every morning to just close my eyes. This is before anything, okay? Before you even, this isn't your morning prayer, guys. This is before morning prayer. This is my eyes open, okay? Before you even get up to use the washroom or anything like that, just take a minute or two to just acknowledge as to the fact that I just woke up. Thank you, God, for today. Thank you that you are God. Thank you for making me, who I am in you. I am your son or I am your daughter. Okay, and I choose to live my life accordingly to the fact that you are my father and that I am your child. And that's it. It's just this moment of realizing. It's this moment of clarity before I go into the mud, before I pick up my phone. And people have their alarms on their phones. Yes? Most of us? Okay, so the phone's right there next to my bed. So the alarm goes off. I turn it off. And then what do? I pick it up. And I check for notifications. Who has messaged me? What's been updated? That's like the first thing before I even get up or go to the bathroom or say my morning prayers or anything. So what have I already done? I've started to stick mud all over myself and all over my eyes before anything has started. Okay? So you want to get away from that. So before you do anything, do not pick up your phone in the morning. Spend a minute or two to realign yourself in truth. Another daily thing that we can do is spend 1 or 2 minutes before and after we pray or read our Bible at home. Okay? This whole idea of like before I pray, just again, this whole idea of truth. Who am I about to stand before? Okay, like just take a second, because when we go into prayer, we just rush into it and we just start saying stuff. We don't even know what's happening. It's like, do I even acknowledge who I'm standing before, or am I just like, okay, thank you, okay, go into, okay, our Father art in heaven, I just want to like be done. Okay, no, like, oh, nobody else does that? I'm serious. This whole idea of like, who am I speaking before? Like, who am I standing before? It's all the realigning myself in truth. Who is he that I stand before? Who it is that I'm about to speak to? It's a big deal. There's this one song, I'm sure you guys have heard it. It's by Hillsong. It's called Touch the Sky. And one of the lines floors me. It says, I touch the sky when my knees hit the ground. Guys, that's like huge. Every time you stand up in prayer, you touch the sky, like you're talking to the God of gods and the Lord of lords. Like, this is no small thing, but we just go in, we casually say some stuff, and we walk out. It's this whole idea of just take a minute to just reflect as to who you're about to stand before. Whether that's God, whether that's Father, Savior, regardless of who he is that he's revealing to you or strongly putting on your heart. Okay, but we need to spend time before we pray, before we read the Bible, and also spend like a minute after. Reflect on what you just read. It's not like, okay, good, I'm done my chapter for the day, thank you very much, like go about my business. It's like, take a minute to just reflect as to what just happened. What truth did God just give me? So that's daily. Weekly. This is a scheduled time. So the daily ones, you can see they're not really scheduled. It's one that's just look for opportunities throughout your day to not pull out your phone. Yes, it's like 1 or 2 minutes in the morning, and then when you're already going to pray or read your Bible, to just spend a minute or two here or there. Okay? The weekly one should be scheduled. 20 to 30 minutes. Okay? Be intentional and stick it in your schedule. You might be thinking, I don't have 20 to 30 minutes. Okay? If you think you're too busy to give God 20 to 30 minutes per week to realign the rest of your life, then really what are you doing with your life? Okay? So it's this whole idea of like, if I don't have 30 minutes to give him, to tell him what the purpose of my life is and who I am, then really what am I doing the rest of however many hours are in my week? Okay? Then I have no purpose. Then I have no focus. Okay? So if you're thinking I'm too busy, then you should really step back and figure out, what am I doing? Am I just running? Running without any goals, without any purpose? No focus? I'm just running my life. Great. So what is actually the point of doing any of that if I'm not going towards anything? So I highly, highly recommend, the book recommends, fathers recommend, we spend time weekly, okay, 20 to 30 minutes, intentional. Set it on a day, doesn't matter which day, but set it in your schedules. This 30 minutes makes the rest of the week. Puts into perspective the rest of your week. Gives purpose to the rest of your week. So that's weekly. The second thing that we can do weekly is liturgy. The first, when you walk into liturgy, the first minute or two, don't just run in and like do what was like normally what you do in liturgy. Okay, especially like if you're like a deacon, you just like walk in and it's like you don't know what to do. Like you get this, you grab your tongue, you do that, like, and then it's just like it's already like a half an hour in, and then we just go in, and we're all singing, and it's just like you just kind of go in, and then all of a sudden it's like communion, and you're like, have I actually talked to God like during this whole thing, or have I just been like saying stuff and like not even acknowledging what's happening? Like to be honest, like liturgy, like God is like Christ is here and he's offering himself to us, and we just go in and out, and it's like, oh, that's nice. Okay, so can we spend a minute or two just right when you walk into church, right when you walk in, Before you do anything, before you go sit where you go sit, or wherever you go stand, or right when you get there, before you talk to anybody, before you do anything, just a minute or two to acknowledge what's about to happen. Acknowledge that, like, I'm about to partake of Christ. I'm about to be in union with him. I'm about to participate, like all like the heavenly hosts that are present here for like the Lamb who's slain, like anything, like just reflect on what is about to happen. And again, after you take communion, do not just go back and like la la la, just like, okay, take a minute or two after you take communion. Go back to your seat, okay, and spend a minute or two reflecting. What just happened here? What did I just partake? How does it affect my life? Again, this whole idea of we need to realign ourselves in the truth of who God is, who I am in him, and who my neighbor is, and what God has called me, and how God has called me to live with my neighbor. That's weekly. And then on a more larger scale, this could be quarterly, like once every few months. This could be twice a year. It could be once a year even. And the length of time, depends on, how long it is. But this is truly like a personal retreat or a spiritual health day, okay? A time that you set aside, okay, and it's pre-planned, a time for you to reflect, a time for you to step away. This isn't a retreat with like people, okay? That's not that kind of retreat. It's a retreat, like you are retreating, okay? It's this idea of, on a larger scale, I'm figuring out who God is, who I am, and what is my purpose. It's the whole idea of, like, we just started a new year, Are we thinking, like, what is my focus? Like, and I understand, like, okay, we're all students, and it's this whole idea of, like, we're running for our careers and things like that, which are very important. I understand. But do you have purpose? Why are you doing all that? We spend so much time, you guys, like, doing things for our careers and, like, trying to get somewhere, and you spend so many hours, like, studying and doing this, and I need to do volunteer hours, I need to be part of this committee and that committee, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, nothing's wrong with that. But is that gold? It's not gold. Okay? You're aiming for, like, regionals. Like, you're aiming for something so, like, minor compared to what God has for you. Like, he wants you to win gold with him, and I'm like, yeah, okay, like, I'd like to win something like on the city level. What? Okay? Let's focus. Let's focus our time. I think, and I was saying this at the beginning, it's this whole idea that the first from the Olympians and us is they are focused. We are not. We're not focused on our goal. Okay? So we need to make a decision. First and foremost is my relationship with God is important. And to actually acknowledge that the world we live in is a pig pen. It's a pig pen. We're all living in muddied up world. Muddied up everything. And like, you guys already all know that. We've all experienced that. We've all experienced muddy relationships. We've all experienced muddy friendships. We've all experienced muddy like thoughts and muddy feelings. Muddy everything. We've all experienced it. That's not news. So let's make a decision that I'm going to step out of the pig pen, be alert and awaken, awake to the fact that this isn't what I'm called to. I'm not called to live in the pig pen. I'm called to live in the palace. I'm called to live as a daughter or son of the king. And only in solitude can we figure out that truth and live in that truth. So that's solitude.